Sideshow presents Get Super with Joshy G. Featuring today's special guest, Adam Cole. It's time to get super.
Hey everyone, what's going on? I'm Joshy G and welcome to another episode of Get Super with Joshy G. And today I am very excited because as my special guest, I have the man himself, WWE and NXT superstar, the leader of the Undisputed Era, the man himself, Adam Cole. Adam, what's up, my friend? How are you?
I am doing amazing. Thank you very much for having me on the show today. I'm excited.
Thank you for joining us. I was looking forward to this episode for a various number of reasons. Obviously, we will get into your love of video games in a minute. As you can see in the background, his shrine to video games, if you will. But how have you been doing? You've been staying home, staying safe. Obviously, I know you're working and stuff, but how has your quarantine been since all this has started?
Right. So, I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, we would love to be able to kind of get things back to normal as much as possible with getting out and socializing and doing things and spending time with people. That's what we love to do the most. But so far, again, with handling everything, I've been doing okay. As you briefly touched on, I have an extreme passion for video games. So that is something that I'm able to do safely, obviously. And then just finding, different alternatives. Like, for example, myself and my girlfriend, we built a mini home gym, which it by no means is anything spectacular. But, before, obviously, we would go to a gym. So now we've found solutions to work out and stuff like that while at home. And yeah, just being safe, making sure that we take every precaution necessary while this is going on, but still trying to have the most fun that we possibly can. And obviously still working as well, but also taking those precautions.
It's funny hearing people say that, they've built a home gym because it's almost like a scavenger hunt. I've seen people and talk to people that are like, I found these set of kettlebells or I found these set of dumbbells in like the weirdest and shadiest way. And I don't question. I'm just like, hey, look, as long as you guys are getting your fitness in during this quarantine, that's totally cool. But it just seems like some weird back end deal where like, yeah, I met some guy in a back alley. He had a set of dumbbells. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool.
It was. I remember, again, my girlfriend specifically, like she was on a hunt for a treadmill. I mean, it took her weeks and weeks and weeks until she finally found one, was just so excited when it finally got here. But it was there for a minute. It was very difficult to get anything. So yeah, I can relate.
Well, I mean, again, I don't know what's more is worth more money, your video game collection or your gym equipment collection in your garage. But either way, it sounds like you're doing well. Now, obviously, people know that you are a professional wrestler, but let's go back a little bit. How was growing up in the Adam Cole house? Like, what were some of the things that you loved as a child? Was it professional wrestling? Was it comic books, video games? What were some of the things that you loved as a child growing up?
Yeah, so video games were definitely on that list. Pro wrestling, I actually got into, I don't know if I can call this later, but I was around 9 or 10 years old when I started like religiously watching pro wrestling. But thinking of my childhood, like I think at least for some people, everyone has like their first memory. And my very first memory ever was I remember waking up at 6 a.m. and rushing downstairs, and I saw that my dad had stayed up all night on the Sega Genesis and played Road Rash. And he got the very best bike, the dark blue bike. And I remember being so excited, like, Dad got the best bike. And I remember like I would play it once or twice, but I was so bad. So I just loved watching him. So my first memory, again, I was 3 years old, and I remember it like it was yesterday, being so excited that he went and got that. So video games were always something that I was into. But funny enough, I have a younger brother, and he was obsessed with video games. Like that was his thing. He was the one who got all the consoles. He was the one who just played all the time. And then when I found pro wrestling, that was the thing that I was obsessed with. But funny enough is my parents at first were not crazy thrilled about the idea of me watching pro wrestling. I remember being really intrigued by it. But at that time, wrestling was transforming into the Attitude Era, where it was super violent and risque, and the language. So like there was something they were kind of uncertain about. But to kind of go into this is one of the first things I did when I was younger is I was also really into karate. I loved Bruce Lee movies. and stuff like that. So I started taking karate lessons, and I became really close with my instructor. He was an amazing, amazing man, and I would get there early to train, and then I'd stay after to work on my technique and stuff. I used to go Monday through Thursday every day, and one day out there, and he was running on a treadmill, and he was watching a taped Monday Night Raw from the night before, and it was Kane and Stone Cold Steve Austin putting Paul Bearer in a sewer. And he looked over to me and he goes, "Oh, do you watch pro wrestling?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I watch it all the time." But I'd never really watched it before. I just wanted to fit in with him so badly. And then, long story short, I was not allowed to watch wrestling at this time. But he told me, he goes, "If you get a written note from your parents, I'll let you borrow WrestleMania 15." So I went home. I begged my mom. I'm like, "Please." And I think she figured, because he was such a good man, if he said it was okay, that maybe wrestling wasn't that bad. And then when I watched WrestleMania 15, I was hooked after that. But yeah, so that was kind of a long-winded way of saying pro wrestling, video games, James Bond movies. Yeah, a bunch of different stuff. Bruce Lee movies. Those were some of my favorites.
What James Bond movie is your favorite?
So I loved Pierce Brosnan. To me, he is my James Bond just from growing up. So I love GoldenEye. GoldenEye was a really, really favorite one of mine, especially because they had the video game. So I just thought it was so cool that you could watch a movie and then you could play the movie as well. So that one was my favorite.
Fun Joshy G fact for you and for those watching at home. I used to work for Pierce Brosnan.
Wow.
As his assistant in his production company. And it's so funny because when he was around and you heard him talk, you literally hung on every one of his words. You were like, "Oh my God, I will do anything this guy says," because he is legitimately the coolest human being on the planet. But
that's amazing.
But yes, I Claudio, aka Cesaro, we had these James Bond conversations. I love GoldenEye as well. I'm a huge Sean Connery. So
so to be fair, if Pierce is my number one because he was my childhood Bond, Sean Connery is my number two for sure.
What is your number two film?
Oh gosh, number two film. This might sound crazy because I am a traditionalist and I absolutely love the classic James Bond movies. Like Goldfinger is great. And there's so many good, but I really think, and I don't know if he's going to get enough credit for this, but the Daniel Craig James Bond movies recently, as far as films from start to finish, to me have been excellent. Like they've been so good. Like
Skyfall is great.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, because I don't know if it's the most recent one or maybe, but nonetheless, the one of the recent Daniel Craig James Bond movies. Oh my gosh, I thought the movie itself, not just for a James Bond fan, but I thought it was awesome. So good. So good.
I loved Diamonds Are Forever, and it's because Sean Connery came back as James Bond, and he's kind of older. But I'm also from Las Vegas, so seeing Vegas in a very vintage era was also kind of fun. It's not the world's greatest James Bond movie, I'll fully admit, but I love it just because it's kind of bad. It's great, and that I got to see Vegas in the late 60s, 70s, whenever that film was shot. But it's another one that I feel is very, very good.
And the one, it's escaping me right now, but the one with Jaws in it, where he debuts.
I think that's You Only Live Twice.
I think it is You Only Live Twice. Yeah. But
that's with Walken. Walken's the bad guy, right?
Yeah. Right. So good.
All right. So James Bond, karate films. Were you, how good were you in karate class? Were you, what belt did you achieve?
Yeah. So I remember the style of this particular karate. It was called Mu Duk Kwan was the name of it. And it was a defensive karate. So pretty much what happened was, in between taking karate lessons, again, I became obsessed with wrestling. So my thought was, okay, it's going to take me 1.5 years, 2 years to get this black belt, or I could start wrestling in school. What would be the better choice? And I decided I wanted to wrestle in school. So I ended up stopping taking karate lessons to pursue amateur wrestling in middle school and high school. But I did decent. Again, I was very young, but I really did enjoy it. But so I got up to brown belt at one point, and I loved it.
Okay. Yeah. And what were some of the wrestling influences growing up that you were watching in the Attitude Era that you were like, "Oh man, these are the guys that I want to emulate"?
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin for the first time
Mm-hmm.
and just thinking he was the coolest human being that ever existed. To me, it was like, again, for a child's mind, it was like they were as amazing and captivating as a movie star, but then you could also like reach out and touch them. So it like blew my mind. I'm like, oh, it's like James Bond, but Stone Cold Steve Austin's a real person. Like I just remember thinking that was so surreal to me. So he was one that I just adored and loved. It's strictly based on, I remember too, again, before I really got into the matches, it was all about the entrances for me. So his music was cool. 20,000 people lost their mind every time he came out. I love Stone Cold. And then a little bit later on, because at this point when I'd started watching, Shawn Michaels was just the commissioner at that point. But then I remember going back and watching his matches and just thinking, even then, as a young kid, oh, he's the coolest wrestler I've ever seen. Just he has the most exciting matches, and it doesn't matter who he wrestles. His match is my favorite match on the show. So yeah, Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle was another big one for me. And one of the big reasons for that, and I think this is important to note for people who are in the public eye and have the chance to meet people who are fans. I liked Kurt Angle, but the reason he became one of my all-time favorites is he was one of the first wrestlers that I met, and he was so nice to me. And it was like, I remember I didn't want to wash my hand for a week. I became obsessed with Kurt Angle because he took literally 2 seconds to be like, I was wearing like an amateur wrestling t-shirt. And he goes, oh, what weight class do you wrestle? And I told him, and he goes, that's great. Keep it up, buddy. That was it. And just a big smile. And I was like obsessed with Kurt Angle after that. So it is important to note for people that maybe to treat people very, very nicely when they get the chance to meet you. I think because it does leave an impression. It really does.
That's true. That's true. But to play devil's advocate, you were also, I'm sure, very polite. So if they come up to you, make sure that they're very polite.
Oh, that is crucial. Yes, because I've had it before too, where, and this is a true story, where I've been going to the bathroom in an airport with my headphones on and been tapped on the shoulder as I'm going to the bathroom. And that is not acceptable whatsoever.
And it's funny. I shouldn't say that it's funny, but this is a good PSA to all you wrestling fans who may be watching, or just fans in general. Like I've been able to travel on the road with a bunch of you guys, and it's been quite an experience nonetheless. But to see people throw their manners right out the window because they want an autograph or a photograph, it's literally mind-boggling. So the PSA here, folks, is if you see somebody, whether they be a professional wrestler or Sean Connery, make sure you're polite when you approach them. Because it is not, you definitely don't want the other end of the spectrum, which is a very rude response, if you will, especially if it's 4 a.m.
Exactly. Could not be more true.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle. Do you remember your very first live event or pay-per-view?
I do. The first live event that I ever went to was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, because I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So for me, Hershey was like 30 minutes away. And at this point, it was, I think it was November of 99. So we were deep in the Attitude Era at this point. And I remember I went, and it was just a house show, just a live event. And the main event that night was like a 4-way tag with the Outlaws and the Acolytes. But I remember like no Stone Cold Steve Austin, no The Rock, no Undertaker. Triple H wasn't on the show. But the show, I mean, my God, I was in heaven. That's when I realized, like, from that moment on, all I wanted to do was go to more wrestling shows because I had never experienced it before. And I'm like, oh, wrestling live is so much cooler than watching it on TV. And I love watching it on TV. But yeah, I'll never forget that. That was just, I remember I couldn't sleep that night. I was just, and a prime example of how much I loved wrestling is I remember I got really sick with the flu. And I was supposed to go to my first ever Royal Rumble to watch that in Philadelphia. I was so sick. And it was like my adrenaline didn't allow me to feel sick at all. When I was at that show, I felt amazing. I was like, oh, I'm over being sick. I'm not sick. And then when the show was done and the next morning, right back to having a fever. Right. But it was like clockwork. It was like my body didn't allow me to feel ill because I was so amped up. I love live wrestling. Love it.
Your flu felt bad for you. It was like, hey, you know what, buddy? I'm going to give you a break. Go to the show, come back. We'll pick up right where we left off.
We'll take care of the rest.
The way you were describing your love for wrestling, it seems like you are or were are a big WWE fan, not
Yeah.
WCW. Is that true?
So well, that wasn't necessarily the case. Like again, my first memory of wrestling period was seeing clips from a WCW Thunder. But I'll put it to you this way: is when WWE was on, I would sit down on the couch and I would intently watch it. And when WCW was on, like I was not a flip back and forth. I wouldn't flip back and forth between Raw and Nitro. I would just watch Raw. But I watched WCW on Saturdays with WCW Saturday Night. And when they had their match, me and my brother would pull out a mattress and we would like wrestle each other while WCW was going on. But while WWE was on, I would sit there and intently watch it. So I still liked it. I even caught the tail end of ECW as well on TNN at the time. But yeah, I was definitely, if I had to pick, if you're like, you got to pick WWE or WCW, it was definitely WWE, kid.
Okay. All right. Now here's the next question, because I kind of feel like I related them to the same way. Nintendo/Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64 or Sega Genesis, Sega CD, Sega Saturn. Were you a Sega guy or a Nintendo guy?
Okay, so
because as a child growing up or as a teenager growing up, I looked at this the same way as WWE, WCW. I was like, you can either be one or the other. Like I had a huge console, like I could only like one versus the other. I won't tell you mine, but I want to know what yours is first.
Well, funny enough, now I get, because I ended up actually started streaming on Twitch, and I actually get, and then I'll answer the question, but I get asked that all the time. Like, are you Sony or Microsoft, or PlayStation or Xbox? And I've always been, especially with them, both. Like I just can't not have both. They're too good. But anyway, so Sega Genesis will always have a very, very special place in my heart because it was the first console that I played. It was the first time I ever experienced video games. But going forward, the truth is my dad traded in our Sega Genesis for the more impressive, according to him, Super Nintendo. And then we grew up playing Super Nintendo. And when it came time to getting a Nintendo 64 or a Sega Saturn, we went with the N64. So I think generally speaking, growing up, that was until PlayStation showed up.
Yeah.
We were Nintendo kids over Genesis. But that is no knock on Sega. I love me some Streets of Rage, some Sonic, some Road Rash, some Vector Man, you name it. I'm into it. But I think, again, if you had to pick, I'd say I was a Nintendo kid.
I was the same way. I loved Super Nintendo and the original NES, and no one could tell me otherwise. And I remember our neighbor had the Sega Genesis, and I was like, 3 buttons? Are you crazy? This is stupid. And then Super Nintendo came out with the 4 buttons, and then the left and the right. And I'm like, oh, I can handle this. This is easy. And he was like, wait a minute, you complained about 3 buttons, and I'm like, yeah, but this is just way easier. This is way more less complicated. I think I was the same exact way, right? Super Nintendo or Nintendo all the way, Game Boy all the way. I remember my brother had, what was the Game Gear? Was it Game Gear? The Sega version?
Game Gear was Sega.
Game Gear. And I was like, how dare you? How could you how could you betray us? And I think the first and only Sega machine or console that I ever bought was a Dreamcast, which was great.
Oh, Dreamcast was great.
Dreamcast was great. I mean, I went from PlayStation to I think Dreamcast, and then PlayStation 2, and then PlayStation 2 obviously blew.
That's a great series right there. That is a great series. So yeah, because we had a PlayStation 1. So I remember when PS1 came out, that was when I realized that games were so much more than something to just pass the time. Like with like Final Fantasy 7, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil 2. I remember being like thinking about these games when I wasn't playing them, and like getting into the characters, like being excited at the idea of a Resident Evil 3 and being like, ooh, I hope Leon Kennedy's in this game.
Yeah.
That's when I realized it was so much more. But so the Dreamcast, I also love, but I never had a Dreamcast. My friend had a Dreamcast. So we would go over and play Shenmue or NFL 2K and stuff like that. But I never had one. To the point where I thought many times about going online and just buying a refurbished Dreamcast just to have it.
I just remember the games being, so great. And I remember the graphics being amazing. I remember just sitting on my floor playing it nonstop. And then obviously PlayStation 2 came out, and it was just like, well, see you later, Dreamcast. Never see from you again. I feel kind of bad about it. But now here's a fun question for you. Are you, obviously we talked a little bit about it, your video game collection.
Yeah.
Are you such an avid collector? Like, what is your most prized possession in your collection? Because
Sure.
I have some friends that are video game aficionados and collectors. And
Yes.
when I say that, I mean that to the point where not only do they collect games in the boxes and the the instruction manual, stuff like that, anything from NES, Game Boy, Super NES, they have it all. But they also
Yeah.
collect the different consoles. I'm talking about like this
Hmm.
Blockbuster edition, or this one you can only get, or maybe the different color of consoles like the N64s. Do you have a prized possession in your collection that is your holy grail?
I do, and I actually got this very recently because a little side note, I actually didn't start getting. I was kind of a casual gamer my whole
Mhm.
life up until 2015. Then I became obsessed with it, and it became my passion and my number one hobby outside of wrestling. So I do. Am I able to go? Am I able to get it and bring
Sure.
it
Yeah,
into? Okay, okay.
sure.
It's a little bit big, so I'm going to try to make sure I fit it completely on screen.
Okay.
But 1 second. So a little bit of backstory here. Um, Me being so into gaming, I love the history of gaming. That's one of my favorite things, like reading up on the first video games and kind of when it started taking off. So in my possession, I have what is called a Magnavox Odyssey first edition.
Oh,
And
wow.
the first edition Magnavox Odyssey is the first ever home video game console. So in the box
Wow.
and everything right here is the Magnavox Odyssey, which the amazing fact about this is pretty much it's Pong. So it's just that what they do is they give you overlays.
To put on top of the TV, right?
Right, right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you just play ice hockey, tennis, Haunted Mansion is one where you got to go through a maze and stuff like that. But I have the little certificate and it says it was released holiday 1972. So that to me is so, because again, I have begun collecting all these different consoles. And to be able to find that one in the condition that it's in the shape that it's in, with every piece, that's my baby, the Magnavox Odyssey Edition 1.
That is such a cool piece. I remember seeing, I don't know if it was like YouTube or something, but just going, or a documentary about that, but they showed how they used to play that. And like you were exactly right. You put a piece of, it was almost like a piece of plastic or a piece of something over the TV. And it was is the controller, like it was like a knob,
Yes,
right?
it was a knob. Yeah, the big white controller with a little knob that you would turn stuff with. So because again, it's just the way my brain is with stuff that I'm really passionate about. I have done so much, and when I say research, I mean freaking looking online. But so much different research on like looking for what do people consider the first video game? What was it pretty unanimously the Magnavox Odyssey is the first home video game console, but all that stuff is so interesting to me too. You can go as far back as 1949, and then some people think it's 20 years after that when the first video game came out. So I love it. I'm a nerd for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And what's so great about like Sideshow, it being a collectibles company, there's so many different collectibles that people love, whether it be 6 scale, statues, the list goes on and on. And the fact that you do the research to collect and find the things that you love, I think that is just a true testament of how big of a fan you are. Now, do you collect all the is your goal to collect all the consoles from the Odyssey all the way down to the current ones? Or
so that is the dream scenario. I know me and you had talked a little bit before this, but me having my game room is amazing. The problem is it's getting smaller and smaller the more I collect. So at this point, I mean, I think maybe we'll even be able to see a little bit at one point, but there's stuff very neatly, but stuff piled on the floor right now. So eventually, I mean, God, my dream scenario is to like build a game room where it's like, all the games that should be played on CRT TVs are hooked up and connected to those CRT TVs. And then for up to PS4 Pro, you have that connected to a 4K television. It would be my dream to be able to collect pretty much every console going up to it. So I love all the mini consoles that have come out recently.
Oh, me too.
Which are so nostalgic. But but my goal definitely is to create like the ultimate game room someday. I would love that.
Now, does that mean collecting the games? Now again, I'm referring to my friends Max and Harry. Max and Harry are the ones that kind of got me into video game collecting, because before I used to have, a Super Nintendo, and for some reason or the other, I don't have it anymore. And so they're like, oh, well, why don't you come with us to this video game show, or let's go to Frank and Sons in California and let's try to find some of these games. And so I would start finding the games and I'd buy them. And they're like, oh, you only buy just the cartridges? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's all I need. They're like, oh, no. You got to get the boxes and the instruction manuals. And then it started to become like a slippery slope where I had to literally stop myself because I have this collector's mentality where, just like you, I'm like, you know what? I think it would be cool if I had all of the things. And I just for financial reasons, I had to stop. But Harry and Max, they do those things. And is that something that you're interested in? Do you want the games? Do you need to have the games with the instruction manuals and the original box or case?
So very similar to you, with as passionate as I am about it, I have not jumped into that realm quite yet. Like for example, my girlfriend for my 30th birthday got me a factory refurbished Nintendo 64, which I love. But when she got it for me, it was without the box. I also collect video game boxes of the consoles, as you can see.
Oh yeah, they collect those as well.
And then also she got me a bunch of N64 games, but it was without the box. And I was borderline thankful for that, because if I was the one who bought the N64, I would have found one with a box.
Yeah.
And I would have found every game with the box and the instruction manual. So for me, actually, funny enough, like it's the same thing. Like as far as the mini consoles go, I have a mini Famicom, so like the Japanese Nintendo, but it's the mini version. ColecoVision, same thing. It's the mini version of that one with preloaded games on it. Intellivision, same thing. So I have not jumped too far into the collecting the boxes and instruction manuals yet, because I'm so afraid if I go down that route. Like a part of me too, for example, I'm like, oh, I'll start with the first one I had. I'll start with a Genesis. I'll get like an actual Sega Genesis with all the games in the boxes and stuff. But I have not done that yet. And I know for a fact, eventually that day is coming. And then there goes my wallet.
Yeah. Trust me, it is not pretty. I started to do it and I literally had to stop because I was like, oh man, this is going, because I started with the NES. So I was like, okay, let me get some of the games that I love. So one of them was like TNC Surf, which isn't an expensive game by any means, but I was like, okay, I got the box, I got the instruction manual. Oh, what's another game that I love? Oh, okay, Super Mario Brothers 3. Got a little bit more expensive, and then it just started to it was just a bad idea. So I was like, I have to stop.
Yeah.
That brings me into my next question, because you're talking about the little mini consoles with the preloaded games. Are you such a video game purist where you have to play the games and the consoles with the cartridges? Or are you a fan of like these multi-systems that like you can get 300 games into one?
Right. So generally speaking, I am not a purist in the sense of I'm okay with playing a game for if it's on the mini console. That's I guess what I'm trying to say. Here's what I'll explain is like the NES Mini or playing an NES game. I love playing it with an NES controller. Genesis, same thing. I like to play a Genesis game with the 3-button Genesis controller. Super Nintendo, I like playing it with the Super Nintendo controller. So I'm totally fine with those mini consoles, but I absolutely prefer to play the games with the actual controller that goes with it. For example, I have Super Mario World on my SNES Classic and Super Mario World on my Switch. Super Mario World is great on the Switch, but it's not, I swear to God, you move better with the SNES controller. Just everything just feels better. I feel like I'm a better player. I feel like I have more control of Mario. There's just something about playing the original game on that original controller. So I definitely am someone who likes to stick, console and controller fits with that game that I'm playing. So I'm definitely that way.
And that's the one thing too, with some of these emulators that are out there, they, like you were saying, they don't move as well. Again, going back to my friends, Max and Harry, they have one of those, remember those Sony bulky TVs that were like 800 pounds, but they had the different coaxials and different inputs in the back. They have that in their house because they are so like, hey, look, this does not play a certain way on a HDMI emulator, this, that, and the other. So we are so purist that we're going to bring in this 800-pound TV just to keep it in our game room.
Right.
The other thing too that I'm curious to know, like, are you a fan of the downloading of video games versus like having the actual game?
So
When I was on the road with Claudio, our good friend Claudio,
yeah,
aka Cesaro, he was like, "Oh, this is so easy," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I love actually having the game and the packaging." Where are you on that?
yeah. So for me, I'm actually somewhere in the middle. Like I totally understand the convenience of digitally downloading a game, especially when you buy it like for when the day that it comes out. To have that game completely preloaded and then at midnight you can play it is absolutely incredible. Before, my excuse used to be, oh, I like the physical copies strictly for the download size, but now it's the exact same. So that makes absolutely no difference. However, if it's a game I really care about and it's a game that means a lot to me, 100% of the time I want the physical copy. Like for example, and this is the unfortunate reality of the world we're in right now, and it was such a not a real problem to have. But Final Fantasy VII Remake was a game I was so excited to have, and of course, mail and everything was backed up with everything going on, and understandably. So I bought FF7 Remake forever ago, and it was supposed to get to me the day that it was released, but obviously it was delayed a couple of weeks. So I digitally downloaded it to play it while waiting for the physical copy to come to me, because I got the collector's edition and stuff like that. So
I feel like you're not the only one that has that problem. Yeah, I feel like you're not the only one that has that problem.
Right. But again, I know this has been kind of a theme, but if you told me you have to pick physical copy or digital download, absolutely physical copy. It feels nice to have something in your hand and look at it, and especially with collector's editions where you get the booklets and the soundtracks and all that stuff. But will not argue the convenience of digital download. It's great.
Trust me, I will not argue that as well. I think that is very easy and convenient to be like, oh, I don't have to wait. I don't have to go to a GameStop. I don't have to wait in a line, et cetera. But also, obviously maybe not now because of the world we're living in, but there was always something fun about going to a store at midnight or waking up and going to a store first thing and picking up the game that you were so eagerly awaiting. I remember like doing that for one of those WWE N64 games. I can't remember if it was No Mercy or WrestleMania 2000, but I was just like, oh, I can't wait to have this game, which is funny because I was a big WWE fan. So WCW versus NWO, amazing game for N64. But I would never sell it. I would always be like, oh, that game sucks. This game is awful. Screw WCW. And then as soon as THQ took over the licensing, I was like, oh, these games are great. These games are awesome. So that just showed you how much of a WWE fan I was, not to mention how big of a Nintendo fan I was.
Right. You briefly mentioning this, that's the other thing too. Some people, and this is crazy to me, but some people are okay with downloading a game, playing it, and then deleting it off their console. That's just nuts to me.
100%.
I have external hard drives for every one of my consoles because I refuse. I think my Xbox One has 160 games on it, and probably 100 of them I haven't even played yet. But I refuse to delete them. I'm like, no, I have to keep every game that I download on my console. No way am I going to delete it.
Another client / friend of mine, Seth Rollins, we were talking about this on the show. He has a big rock band collection of songs, Guitar Hero songs on an Xbox that he refuses to throw away because he purchased, hundreds upon hundreds of songs. And so he's like, I'm not going to get rid of this thing. Like the songs that I bought or downloaded, so I'm going to keep them. So yes, there are people out there that would not get rid of it. And for those of you that would want to delete a game to get rid of that and have extra space, I think that's crazy. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's crazy.
Right. Agreed.
So do you have is there a game that you love more than anything? Is there a particular game that is your favorite, whether it be NES, Super NES? What is your all-time favorite game?
Yeah. So I have I have to list two because one of them is my personal favorite, and then one of them, in my opinion, is just the greatest video game of all time.
Okay.
This is a really strange answer for a lot of people, but I'll do a very quick explanation. My favorite game of all time is Halo 5 Guardians.
Okay.
And a lot of people are like blown away by that. Number one, Halo is, I think, a it's a lot of people's favorite first-person shooters, but it's the earlier trilogy ones. But again, like I know I had briefly touched on this, but in 2015 was when I became obsessed with video games. And I'll never forget, Halo 5 had come out, and my brother went and bought it on his Xbox, and I saw him playing it, and I was like, Halo 5, that's crazy. I remember playing Xbox, us linking up and playing Halo Combat Evolved, all of us in high school. That was so much fun. And my younger brother, his name's Brent. I said, Brent, do you mind if I play some of that Halo 5 campaign? I want to see how it is. He goes, yeah, sure. I stayed up until 6 a.m. and beat the entire campaign in one sitting. And I went to bed and I'm like, that was so much fun. I hadn't really had at that point. I was wrestling and traveling so much. I had no hobbies, nothing. It was just wrestling 24/7. So I woke up the next day and I'm like, I should buy an Xbox. I just want to buy I bought an Xbox, and then the rest was that's why Halo 5 is the reason this game room exists. Yeah. It's the reason it's the reason I'm talking to you right now about being so passionate about games. So that one will always be so special to me. But as far as if people ask, like, what's the greatest game you've ever played? The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is the most unbelievable video game that I have ever played. I played it was 150 hours. It was the most captivating, interesting story. I remember it was one of those games where when I wasn't playing it, I was fantasizing about playing it. It's an open world, beautiful exploration game. Every single side quest that you did was important. Every single character you met was intriguing. The music is downloaded on my phone because it's that good. It made me cry at some points. It made me angry. It made me jump with joy. It was the most beautiful piece of art that I've ever experienced, seen, been a part of, more importantly, played. So that one I will scream at the top of a mountain is, in my opinion, the greatest video game ever made.
And see, this whole time I thought you were going to say Roller Coaster Tycoon. Witcher 3. All right. That's a great answer. One cannot argue with that. And that's it's so great about whether it be movies and TV shows, comic books, video games. They all kind of move us in a different way. And they all kind of show us kind of who we are as humans and individuals. And the fact that, like, look, it's very well documented that wrestlers, in the the late 70s, early 80s, they weren't into video games. They were into other extracurricular things. And I think that it's so cool that this generation of wrestlers and sports entertainers, whatever you want to call them, they have so many other passions to keep them occupied, whether it be, fitness, whether it be video games, whether it be collecting toys or comic books. I mean, it's so cool to see that this generation have such a passion for things. And now with the, invention of, Twitch and YouTube and all this sort of stuff, you guys can show the world your love for X, Y, and Z. And I think that that's really cool that you guys have that avenue. You guys have that platform to be like, hey, look, guys, these are some of the things that I love and that I enjoy. And I hope that you guys love them too. And I think that too, growing up, and again, maybe it's because I'm a little older than you, being a nerd or being a video game fanatic or this, that, and the other may have been was frowned upon back then. And now it's so well celebrated. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's kind of cool that you guys, don't shy away from that, being these, champions of the world or being on TV and beating up 300-pound guys, X, Y, and Z. That at the end of the day, you're going to go home and play Witcher 3 and possibly cry or be emotional about it.
Sure. And this comes down to this too. I just think, and this is, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but the idea that video games are just for nerds and a giant waste of time is so outdated. It's so outdated. It's been proven at this point, first of all, by the absolute crazy amount of money that the industry brings in. It's been proven with the beautiful scores that have been written with the music in video games, the amazing voice acting, the ability to, again, make people happy, sad, cry, laugh, whatever it is. And the most important thing to me is the community, like the bringing people together. Like there have been, one of the coolest things about Twitch is the community that is formed on that channel. Like me sharing my passion for games and then people coming in and sharing that exact same passion. It's beautiful. And then on top of that too, again, kind of like you had briefly touched on, to be into video games as a side hobby is a lot better than some other side hobbies that anybody could have. Yeah. So I think it's a beautiful thing. I really, really do.
Yeah. And, it's also kind of cool to see your, collection grow as, the years go on. Hopefully you'll get that game room that you were so looking forward to. Now, you are obviously a part of the Undisputed Era.
Yes.
I train one of your members, Roddy, aka Roderick Strong.
Yes.
Do you get them involved in some of the video game fanatics or video game shenanigans, I should say, that you are a part of?
Sure. So I think as far as fandom, I'm definitely the biggest fan of video games as far as Undisputed Era is concerned. Bobby Fish doesn't really touch video games whatsoever. Kyle O'Reilly, though, I remember he would listen to me passionately talk about games so much that he eventually said, I'm going to go buy a PlayStation. So he went and bought a PlayStation 4. And now Kyle has been really into, on his downtime, playing video games and getting excited. And like Ghost of Tsushima just came out and he texted me right away. Oh, have you played this yet? It's amazing. So that's really cool for me. And Roddy, I got him to come on Twitch one time because he didn't understand it. It's confusing for a lot of people who don't get it. So I said, come on the stream. They would love if you would come on the stream. And he came on and we played old school Nintendo games together. And he loved it. Yeah. He had such a good time, totally understood at that point. It were to the point where he said, hey, please, let me come on again. So, and Roddy now I know is introducing his little boy, his adorable little boy, Troy, into Nintendo Switch, which is like the perfect thing for little kids. So I know he's starting to play them a little bit more too. So I'm hoping I can get Roddy to get more into them as well.
Oh yeah, and again, Roddy's such a great guy, and I love that he's getting Troy into Twitch. One final kind of video game question before we get into this workout situation. Sure. Big arcade fan, and if so, what was your favorite arcade game growing up?
Yes.
And what is your favorite arcade game going today?
Right. Love the arcades. That's one thing I really miss, and I wish that somehow they could come back. Strictly just because now you can play literally anything at home. But as a kid, I was a massive Time Crisis fan. I thought it was so cool that you could press that pedal to stand up or hide behind cover. And then when you would shoot the gun, it would cock back. I thought that was so cool. DDR, I really, really liked. I was never amazing at it, but I really liked that. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time was one of my favorite beat 'em ups by far. And to this day, it's one of my favorites. So love arcade.
It's such a great game. And I think that there were like 3 or 4 around that same time that were pretty much the same game, but just different characters. Right. There was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There was Sunset Riders, which I loved. And Simpsons.
Yeah.
It was all kind of the same.
That was great.
Those ones were good. Did you like WrestleFest, being a wrestling fan?
I did like WrestleFest. Absolutely. Yeah. I'd say the most into a wrestling game I ever was, though, was probably that WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, N64 era. That's when I got the most into wrestling games. But definitely played that.
All right. Well, like Adam was mentioning earlier, it's fun to build the community, and that's kind of what Dead Boys Fitness, what Seth and myself have tried to do with the wrestling community. As we know, a lot of people don't have the motivation to get up and move and to do workouts, especially now when you're stuck inside. And now with the help of Sideshow Collectibles, we have this fun show where we get to talk to some really cool people like Adam Cole, and we get to talk about some nerdy stuff. And at the same time, too, we're going to do an at-home workout. So we're going to pause for a moment, readjust some things, and then we're going to do an at-home workout that pretty much anybody at home can do, 0 to no equipment, and 2 movements that Adam loves, air squats and jumping jacks. That's what he said. He said these are the top movements that he does. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say that, but I'm gonna make him do it anyway. So we're gonna hit the pause button, and we'll be right back.
All right, guys. So this workout today is known as a couplet. A couplet basically means 2 movements. We are going to go down a ladder, descending in reps. So we're going to start with 20 reps with both jumping jacks and air squats, and you're going to end all the way to 1 rep of both jumping jacks and air squats. Jumping jacks, real simple. I always say, like we did in PE class, hands overhead and to the side. That equals 1 rep. Again, as you jump up, your feet move to the outside, and your feet move in at the end of that rep. If you have trouble jumping, maybe you have bad ankles, maybe you're not able to for whatever reason, you can do step out jumping jacks, which means left foot out, hands above your head, left foot in. That is 1 rep. Right foot out, right foot in. That is 2 reps. All right, so that is the standing jumping jack. Again, these workouts are designed for anybody to do at home. So remember, again, there's always a way to do it. All right, if you can't move your legs out and about, hands overhead and to your side. Again, some movement is better than no movement at all. Next, the dreaded air squat. What we're looking for is for you to squat all the way down, that hip crease below the knee, as my butt slammed into my TV counter. As you come all the way up, I'll take a step forward. Again, we're looking for you to get all the way down below parallel. Why are we asking that? Because we want you to engage your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings. If you're anywhere above it, you're gonna feel that pressure in your knee. If you have some sort of limitations, maybe you can't squat all the way down, that's totally fine. Go ahead and put a target behind you. In this case, my entertainment center. You're gonna squat down till your butt touches the entertainment center, and you're gonna come right back up. You can use a chair, you can use a medicine ball, any kind of object that you can sit down behind you. Again, remember that weight in your heels as you lower yourself all the way down and you come all the way up. All right, make sure that you push your knees out. Don't let those knees cave in when you squat down. All right, so reminder, 20 jumping jacks, 20 air squats, 19 jumping jacks, 19 air squats, reps decreasing all the way down to 1. All right, guys, so we're gonna get started. And again, like I mentioned before, normally we would go all the way down to 1, but just for demonstration purposes, Adam and myself, we are just going to go all the way down from 20 to 10. So we're gonna do 20 jumping jacks and 20 air squats, 19, 19, 18, 18, all the way down to 10. All right, Adam, are you ready, my friend?
I am ready.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. So jumping jacks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I hear matzo ball, she's coming.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
15, 16, 18, 19, and 20. All right, next again, we're going right into those air squats. So squatting all the way down, hips below parallel, then standing all the way up. 1, 2, 3, and you can go as fast as possible. 8, 9, 10. I'm at 10. 16.
And boom.
Oh, beat me. 20. All right, 19. Did you have to do a lot of these in wrestling school?
I did. There was quite a bit.
All right, 18. Here we go. But you seem very athletic, Adam. I'm sure you got through them quickly.
I'll tell you, it has been a while since I've done a ton of air squats though. So this is good.
Here's matzo ball for those of you
Yes.
wondering where she was. She weighs 60 pounds.
I was gonna say,
Too
you
heavy.
added some weight there.
Too heavy. All right, we're on 17,
Yes.
15, and 16.
Woo!
All right, 15,
Burning.
Here we go.
This is a great thing to do in between gaming.
See? Adam gets it.
I agree. It keeps the blood flowing.
14, 15, here we go. And that's what we try to encourage, again, for people that are at home, doing something is better than doing
Exactly.
nothing at all. So again, do it the way it's prescribed. There's tons of scaled options. And 5. All right, 14.
All right.
Ready? Here we go.
Ready.
7, 8, 10, 11,
Yeah.
12. All right, last round, 11, and then we're done.
And then we got
Ready?
it.
Go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 squats and we're done.
All right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, 11.
Did 12. Did 12. Just
Oh,
because.
okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, before we go, I'll let you catch your breath because I usually
Sure,
ask
right?
the
Woo.
question, I usually ask a question to all my guests, and I forgot to ask it to you, but it's a very important question.
Okay.
Every guest on my show, I ask them this question, and I want to ask you, if you were to book a pop culture WrestleMania main event, could be anything, what would it be? For example, Hulk versus Wolverine, Superman versus Freddy Krueger, 10 stormtroopers versus 10 Foot Clan in a battle royal, whatever you want it to be.
Wow.
What is your pop culture main event at WrestleMania and why? And it could be anything. Any match stipulation, any.
This one's in my head since you said Freddy Krueger. Man, Michael Myers versus Jason Voorhees would be pretty sick.
Okay.
I personally am a Michael Myers fan, but I know a lot of people love Jason. So I think that's my go-to match.
Okay.
That's
Michael
my
Myers
go-to
versus
match.
Jason. Is there any match stipulation? Steel cage in a swamp?
Yeah, I think a no DQ false count anywhere. Here we go. It starts in the house that Michael Myers hunts Jamie Lee Curtis down in. So they start fighting outside, and all of a sudden, Michael realizes he's in the swamp. And how did we get here? And then where we go from there, I don't know. I'll have to talk to creative about that one. But
okay, you don't have a who's going over? You're not going to tell me who's going to go over, huh?
I don't know. It depends. Who's rocking and rolling, or Michael or Jason at the time. Are we going to go to a rematch? I don't know.
All right. I like that answer. Well, again, Adam, I know you're super busy. Thank you for chit-chatting with me today. Thank you for sharing your incredible collection. Thank you for working out with me. And thank you for your pop culture main event WrestleMania. You are awesome. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys follow Adam on social media, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Make sure you check him out Wednesday nights on NXT, on USA. Adam, thank you again so much. I appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. Please do me a favor. Stay in Sideshow, stay safe. But most importantly, don't forget to let your geek side show. See you guys soon.
Hey, did you like that video? Be sure to subscribe by clicking the S icon on your screen and click that bell icon to be notified whenever a new video is posted. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to let your geek side show.